Welcome, Marvelites, to an all-new episode of the MCU Exchange podcast. My name is Aaron, and I'll be your host for this episode. Alongside me is Charles and Joe.
Hello.
Hey, shout out to our listeners over at Spotify, YouTube, Anchor, Google Podcasts, and Breaker. Hope you guys are enjoying listening amid the quarantine and the pandemic. And also, please do like us on our Facebook page. It's facebook.com/themcuexchange. And you can also follow us on Twitter, that is currently blowing up because of the 1 year anniversary of Avengers Endgame that we'll talk about later. Please do follow that on Twitter, twitter.com/MCUExchange. And let's now dig into the latest MCU news on the rundown. First up, sad news for everyone who is anticipating a Comic Con this year. It was announced by San Diego Comic Con that they're officially canceling the event for the first time in 50 years. And they will be resuming the events next year at 2021, which is supposed to be the most anticipated event of the year, has now been canceled. Now, guys, what do you think is the effect of this in the Marvel Cinematic Universe brand? Should Marvel Studios do their own Comic Con, or do they have a plan set up? Maybe a rumor that they're gonna do a virtual Hall H. Charles, what do you think about this news?
It's expected because of the things that are happening in the world. It doesn't seem like the
Yeah.
curve is necessarily flattening worldwide. It varies for every continent. So the state's fucking crazy right now with all the shit going on with Trump and all the crazy stuff with beaches opening and whatnot, and seeing the results from that. It's kind of disastrous. So it makes sense that they're canceling it. It is a bit of a bummer because for the first time in 50 years, this tradition isn't happening. As far as it affecting our MCU world, at least in terms of news, it's gonna be a fucking drought come July. There's not gonna be much
Mm,
anything. Then again, I don't think Marvel has anything going on at the same time that is worth announcing. I mean, they could announce fucking a new film with their own sort of virtual Hall H presentation, but I'm sure that even they're not sure on when they can actually greenlight this and start production because we don't know when this shit is gonna end. So it's kind of pointless as well. So it's a lose lose for everyone. Again, it doesn't make sense for Marvel to put out some stuff because there's nothing going on. They're not doing
Yeah.
any development deals behind the scenes. They're not casting. All the casting news we're
mm.
hearing are from months back before the quarantine started happening. So, there's nothing going on. So it's gonna be a long fucking drought for everyone. Everyone who writes about this stuff, everyone who's anticipating it. It's gonna be a bore of July in the next 2 months.
It's pretty much the same on my side. I think we're not going to see a lot of big news. The thing is, the problem is also what Marvel faces is that pretty much everything new was shifted further away. So the question is it worth talking about the news that they kind of had to give away with when they changed the schedules? The thing is that I personally hope that this is also a start towards, because E3 also got canceled. So we're seeing a lot of developers thinking, how can we, prepare something, do some online videos. I'd be perfectly okay if they did something from home, just talking about the history or just talking like look backs and teasing what's coming, maybe some small exclusive sequences from the upcoming projects that have already been filmed, because right now the hype train for Black Widow, has to die down because they can't really push any marketing for a November release. So either they're going to kind of wait until, let's say, August to start marketing it again, and maybe combine that with a short, hey, everyone's back, guys, here's what's coming. We know everything's a little delayed, but here we want to tease you, because we also still need the Disney Plus release dates, because those are certainly not going to stick. So the question is how they're going to handle that as well.
We are working, like we're covering news Marvel for the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and it hits us a lot because this
Yeah.
is our biggest source of news. Like we
Yeah,
literally can just last year we literally made 10 plus articles in just one night because of San Diego Comic Con. Yeah,
Oh man.
and it's hard. It's hard right now that there are no upcoming news for several properties, and it's a good. It's expected, because in the U.S., there are reports of many deaths, stay-at-home protocols everywhere, and let's just hope that all of this dies down in the next few months or maybe next year or so. And hoping for the best, guys. All right, moving on to the next news is apparently sad news again for Marvel production because Marvel forced to terminate showrunner deals while Hellstrom is still confirmed for release. So apparently, um, showrunners for both Hellstrom and The Punisher have both been terminated from their contracts. Steve Lightfoot from The Punisher and Paul Zivowski from Hellstrom. And sad, many employees are being furloughed right now, and it's surprising and it's sad, and this is because of the pandemic. This is like the new norm nowadays. Joe, since
Yeah.
you wrote this article, what do you think about this news when you first read it?
There's a lot to take out of this article. On the one side, I mean, this is the confirmation that Hellstrom is still happening. I mean, we were unsure if they finished the filming before this entire pandemic happened. This kind of confirmed that they did. Um, I mean, those who might know is that the showrunner of Hellstrom has been on part of Agents of Shield since really early on, so he has a history with Marvel TV. And the second thing that really interesting is that Lightfoot still had a contract. So normally what it is that they have contracts with the production studio. So it would have been with
Mm-hmm.
ABC Studios, because Punisher, even though it was released on Netflix, is still a ABC Studios production. The rights just are with Netflix due to the publication or distribution. Now the thing is that it's even more complicated because Lightfoot had a direct contract with Marvel. So my guess is that this is probably a very strong thing from Perlmutter to keep that in house because it's cheaper. They don't have to do any licensing outside. But the thing is that there was a bigger plan here. So the question is if this deal included future projects. We remember the Ridley project that was kind of teased for about 2 or 3 years, and that never happened until he moved to a different studio. And so I'm guessing that right now this is also ironically a bit of a cleansing for Kevin Feige from the former Marvel TV divisions, showrunners that were still around. It's the timing's terrible, and our hearts go out to anyone who has to face this. And I think it's just right now it's a really troubling time that I don't think, because some people online did talk about, it's Kevin Feige getting rid of everything that Marvel TV did. He did keep a lot of support from the productions of the other shows are still supporting with the Marvel Studios productions. And I think these are just right now the deals, these long-term deals with multi-projects that are kind of being canceled out. There's always the potential that they could come back and restart those deals depending on if they have a new project coming. It could all just be temporary.
Charles, your thoughts about this sad news?
Like Joe, I was surprised that Stephen Lightfoot was still attached
Yeah.
with the Marvel.
Yeah.
I thought that soon as in my head, I don't know how the industry works, but in my head, when something gets canceled, I immediately assume that like with everything going on in our lives, when something gets canceled, the contract terminates and you're basically out of a job. So I thought for the most part, Stephen Lightfoot had been let go by Marvel for some time. So it was a bit surprising to see his name attached to it because we certainly didn't hear about the other showrunners for all the other canceled shows because again, their contracts might have well been terminated at the announcement of the cancellation. So it is interesting that Lightfoot is an exception to that rule. Um, Joe mentioned the John Ridley show that was being talked about for God knows how long. That show is in fact I know for a fact that it's Eternals. So um, I'm glad that that show didn't push through because I can't fucking imagine another cosmic show, a space show on network TV. It would be like Inhumans Part Two. So thank God for that for that
Who
dodge bullet.
who who was going to be the weed
But
farmer this time?
oh God, probably Jon Snow from Game of Thrones. He's gonna be dealing with weed. As for Hellstrom, it is kind of ironic that of all the TV shows that was in production to actually finish production, it's Hellstrom. It's the show that nobody
Yeah.
wants.
Yeah.
When shows that everyone wants to see, like WandaVision and Falcon and the Winter Soldier, unfortunately, those shows didn't necessarily meet their proper deadline. So it is. I find that very very ironic. I also agree with Joe that it is sort of the last remaining cleanups for whatever the future um form Marvel TV is gonna take under Kevin Feige. And yeah, we know that some of the people under ABC are being kept by Feige. I know one of the people in charge of some of the Netflix shows is gonna still remain Karim Zik. So he's a name that you'll always see once any Netflix shows ends. His first name on the credits, Karim Zik. You'll see his name first up there. So that's a very interesting personnel that Kevin Feige is keeping for his new
Mm.
division. But yeah, it's it's very unfortunate. Again, like Joe said, my heart goes to everyone who's dealing with such uncertainty, losing a job during this period out of all fucking periods is is
Yeah.
I can imagine how terrifying that is. So my heart goes to everyone. So it's unfortunate news, but Marvel TV is gonna move on without these people, whether we like it or not.
Yep. And we're gonna find out those plans maybe sooner rather than later
Yeah.
in the future. Yeah. Last news coming from the rundown. It's a new rumor for Thor: Love and Thunder. A new casting call shared by the Illuminati points to a new mysterious character, which is described as a young black male, 11 to 12 years old, either African American or black British. And he's described as being intelligent, fearless, mature, and having a good sense of humor. And the young supporting lead character is named Zappa. So I don't know, maybe a young Heimdall, or maybe I don't know. What do you think about this, Charles, when you first read the news?
I'd give like a 60% chance. It's a character that has a connection to Heimdall. I actually saw this casting call a couple of weeks back. And I had the same thought that, oh shit, are they introducing someone connected to Heimdall? I mean, for me, the most logical thing is that it's a kid of Heimdall that we never got to meet, and now
Mm-hmm.
that basically sacrificed his life to the cause against Thanos. I mean, if Heimdall didn't get to send Hulk to Earth, God knows what would have happened during that first invasion from Ebony Maw and Call Obsidian. So Heimdall is in many ways the MVP of Infinity War, the first MVP of Infinity War. So
Yeah.
if it is like a kid, if it is Heimdall's kid, man, I would like to see what sort of reverence Asgard has for Heimdall now that he basically saved the universe. I'm also thinking that with all the reincarnation stuff that goes along with the Thor mythology, could it be like a young version of Heimdall, like a revived version of Heimdall?
Yeah.
But then again, the problem with that is is every Asgardian character that dies gonna come back at one point because oh, it's part of their life cycle. They're gonna get reborn. I mean, I kind of want that to be a permanent thing in the MCU because I want things to die and sort of move on. So I'd much prefer the kid of the idea, but the name Zappa is obviously a reference to Frank Zappa, who is a music legend. It sort of hints at the continued trend of Taika incorporating classic rock
Yeah.
icons
Mm,
into film. So maybe we're gonna get a Frank Zappa song instead of a Led Zeppelin song. That would be fucking sick. I know that Chris Hemsworth said that the script was fucking insane. So
Mhm.
Frank Zappa is an insane musician that a lot of people have a hard time getting into because his songs are so fucking weird. So maybe he's sort of the perfect template for, I guess, song
mm,
wise or tone wise, the direction that we're gonna go. So I'm excited for it. For all we know, this Zappa kid could be someone else, someone totally different. But with Taika, the sky's the limit.
And there are so many possibilities. I wonder if this is indeed, if they're building up to a Heimdall based character, I wonder what his role will be in the new Asgard, because there's no
Yeah.
Bifrost, there's no gatekeeping.
mm.
Right.
I don't know.
Right.
There's a
Right.
gate, but I don't know if they gatekeep it. Joe, what are your thoughts about this news? Casting news.
I confess the first thing when I heard Zappa, I also thought of Frank Zappa, and I think that was a curious, like, what directions could they go, especially with the music and everything. But for the casting itself, I think the one of the biggest like questions that is still kind of remains within Thor's mythology, even if it's very bare minimum if we compare it to the actual mythology of Norse. But like, why does Heimdall see everything? And it seems like that's an ability that, if it died with Heimdall, that seems rather odd that it wouldn't be passed on. So for me, that kind of feels like a connection. I could also just not be a child, but maybe it would give Thor a mission, is that he finds the kid that has passed on this gift and kind of has to teach him among from the new Asgardians to kind of deal with it. Because it does seem like they're going for a larger role for this character. And with all these storylines, we still don't know exactly what direction they're going, because you have Jane Foster Thor, you have Valkyrie, you have the original Thor, and we have the Christian Bale character as the villain. So the question is, where does he fit in the big picture? And for me, the thing that kind of makes sense is that it's maybe a glimmer of hopes for Thor that he lost his best friend in Heimdall, that was kind of teased in Infinity War and Endgame. So this could be his kind of either Heimdall is reincarnated, but I agree with Charles, it'd be kind of dumb if they can do that, because then how does this work now with everyone in New Asgard? It's like their children, the next generation, are reborn versions of their friends, because that would be awkward. And we're back at that
Yeah.
conversation with Steve Rogers. But I can kind of see like this being the one character where it makes sense that these powers, they have to go to someone, especially among the Asgardians that have the bodies and capabilities to see the world. So I could see this as a great role for Thor to kind of find his, as dumb as it sounds, his humanity back, his hope and dreams that push him back into or away from where he was at Endgame.
And if indeed it is proven that he is Heimdall's son or something like that, I'm pretty excited about the dynamic between that character and Thor, because Thor, as you can remember in Infinity War, Thor referred this Heimdall as his best friend. So it will be such an interesting dynamic moving forward.
Yeah.
And those are the latest news on the rundown about the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And now we're moving on to the exchange, which is exciting because, as of it's been a year from the Avengers Endgame premiere internationally and the premiere in the US. Movie premiere with the actors and the journalists. And wow, it's been a wild ride. It's been literally, last year we were just watching Avengers Endgame, and now we're literally in the Endgame. I don't know, just a joke. Anyway, okay, so join us on Twitter for conversations about this, because I recently posted a tweet about it, and it's still blowing up right now after an hour. So the thing is, we're gonna recall our experience during our first viewing of Avengers Endgame. I'll start. During my first viewing of Avengers Endgame was pretty amazing. I actually took a leave from work just because of that. And the thing is, I went to a 6 a.m. screening here in the Philippines, which is we're one of the we're one of the first to witness the movie. It's my first time being in a jam-packed theater at 6 a.m. 6:01 a.m. to be exact. Yeah.
So fucking early.
Yeah, so early. I couldn't sleep the night before, and the thing is, I purchased a Avengers Endgame Quantum Round jacket from online seller in Facebook so that I can wear it in the premiere. And it was amazing. The reactions were raw, because that was during the time that no one was spoiled yet, because it was literally the first public viewing of the movie here in the country. And the reactions were amazing. We were like in a sports arena where we were like screaming, we were laughing, we were crying during those movie. And if I could just go back there, I would relive it over and over again. Actually watch Avengers Endgame twice in the opening day. First in the morning, and then once with my family during the evening. I actually watched Avengers Endgame in the morning alone. I took I took an effort to watch it alone. I actually booked the tickets 3 weeks before
Nice.
the premiere. Yeah, so I can get the best seats in the house. It was in an IMAX theater here in the has laser technology. It's amazing. Charles, how about you? What was your experience during your first viewing of Avengers Endgame last year?
I watched it at probably like 2 p.m. in the afternoon. So Yeah, around that time. It was so weird because me being sort of the MCU, all my friends know me as the MCU guy. So whenever something's happening during the first day, I mean, I got fucking friends that text me, yo, what do you think about the ending? I'm like, bro, what the fuck? I'm literally about to fucking enter the theater. You better get the fuck away from my inbox. So, fuck, I'm gonna fucking beat you up if you fucking spoil this. So I always have that problem as everyone sort of MCU go to. So luckily I turned off my phone, so I was very adamant on not to get spoiled. But yeah, I mean, I'm with Aaron. I kind of wish I could really relive that moment of seeing everything for the first time,
Mm.
seeing like a lot of people describe the Endgame experience as like a fucking rock show where it's like a fucking concert.
Yeah.
And man, it's like I can't even begin to describe what the feeling was like getting to the end, especially that whole thing in the Avengers compound. It's that whole last hour is like a fucking wild ride. And
Mm.
anytime I hear someone tell that or describe their experience as a very plain old similar a simple movie experience where no one was clapping, basically any quiet end game experience that I hear makes me very fucking sad for them because
Yeah.
it's something to celebrate. It's something the whole thing like if your end game experience was just like people just quiet and not making a sound, it's kind of like my motherfucking boring experience. So, it's such like that whole thing that went viral a couple of weeks ago. All the reactions. It makes you miss the experience of being with fans, being with your community,
Mm.
and being with
Yeah.
people that love what you love, and being with people that aren't ashamed to fucking scream and shout, to cry at what's happening on the screen. It's something that's sorely missed, especially during this time. I can say for sure that you know I took that whole thing for granted. That we- every now and then you kind of wish, man, I fucking hate people. I kind of just want to get away from everyone. I kind of hate going out now. I kind of wish I could go out. So it's a
Mm.
nice reminder this time of the year where Endgame. It's the Endgame anniversary. It's a nice reminder of how important the communal experience is.
Yeah. And the reason I was trying to say this, the reason I chose a 6 a.m. screening is just to avoid spoilers.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah. Joe, how about you? Recall your first experience.
I remember I tried. The thing is, here in Austria, most every film is dubbed, and I cannot. Some dubs are good, but most of the German dubbing, especially the Marvel films, are not very enjoyable. So I had to find. We have two English cinemas in Vienna, and one is right down the street from where I live, and they had a special. So normally films premiere on Thursday, but they had an extra special screening on Wednesday evening. So at midnight, point midnight, the official release date would be with Thursday, so they could showcase it. But they would play Infinity War beforehand, so it was a double ticket.
Oh
And
God.
luckily,
Wow.
I met my old roommate. He's from Italy. He called me up and he said, "Hey, do you know if there's any tickets available?" And I was like, I'm checking right now." And by coincidence, we were able to get two tickets. That was a long night. It was a really
Oh
long
my
night.
god.
But it was a really cool experience because I after work I ran home, brought all my stuff back, went to the cinema, we met there, we got something to eat beforehand, and then we watched Infinity War. All those memories come back. But the thing is, you had that fan experience with Infinity War as well. And you heard like people
Hmm.
in the cinema was like, "Oh God, what could this mean for Endgame? And how are they gonna fix it?" Everyone's just freaking out. And then we found out the problem was they had an issue, so it was a 20 to 30 minute delay.
Oh God.
Everyone was getting nervous. Everyone's like
Damn,
buying, and the
really?
line for the popcorn stand was like it's a really small cinema in the basement of an old district. So it's not like a lot of room is there for everyone to go to the toilet to get food or snacks. So it was really funny. Just these all people like talking to each other. There was a guy in a there was a few people like in costume too. Like there was a guy in like the Avengers uniform from Endgame as a onesie, and it was really funny. And they even had, so we were waiting, and they're like, "Oh, it's gonna start in 5 minutes," and everyone was already back in the cinema. Suddenly, a guy runs out in a Deadpool costume and started doing a trivia, and it was really funny. And he gave away like T-shirts and stuff. And he said, and the funniest thing was he was like, "Okay, if you get the question right, I'll shoot it your way. But if my arm's not good enough, you're tough luck." So the guys in the back didn't even try because it was a really long one. And then they had like this countdown. You just saw 5, 4. Everyone's counting and counting, and then at 1,
Wow.
the assholes pressed 5 again, and everyone's like, "Wow!" And then they started playing the film, and it was a lot of fun. Everyone was tired, but it didn't matter. It was a lot of screaming, a lot of crying in the cinema. Everyone was like completely into it, and it was a lot of fun. And I do miss those moments, especially afterwards when everyone starts talking to each other, and even strangers go up and was like, "Hey, what'd you guys think of it? What do you think it could mean?" It's kind of it's temporary, but it builds a connection with people you'll see when you see the next film opening night.
How
Yeah,
hard was it
and
for you guys to get tickets, to secure tickets? Was it like a nightmare? Because I got
Oh
my
yeah.
ticket. I probably got my tickets like a month away from the screening, so it wasn't as hectic. But I imagine that for people who crammed for tickets, who rushed out to buy tickets like days before the premiere, I imagine it was pretty much sold out. Was that the case for you guys?
for me, the thing is, like I said earlier, I bought tickets a month before, not just for me, but for my family, my friends, because I want to have them experience this movie, even though I don't know
Mm.
what to expect. Like I want them joining me when I was watching this movie. So I paid for it firsthand. And the thing is, after everything dies down, I actually watched Avengers Endgame 9 times in the cinema.
God damn,
Nice.
dude.
Yes, 9 times. Yeah, until June. Like I was watching, I was going back. Like I was those are with different people because I want to see their reactions to different scenes. So it's
Right.
worth it. How about you, Joe? Tickets.
You could not buy or find a ticket like a month in advance, and I tried. They were either sold out. Most cinemas didn't even have it ready yet, so it was like, "Oh crap, am I going to get a ticket for opening night?" And I think I got the tickets for the double screening 2 weeks before. So the moment they announced it, I got the
Hmm.
tickets. And I still got pretty crappy seats. Because the
Oh
thing
my
is like
god.
the cinema hall is not your classic like wide one. It's a long one. So if you really lucked out, you're like in the perfect middle. But as soon as you're in row, I think like 15 or something, that screen's far away. And we were luckily like in a perfect spot where you still saw enough, but it was a little further away. But man, I was so lucky because by coincidence I saw it the moment it was updated because normally cinema websites always update their schedules by Tuesdays. I jumped in, I got the tickets. It took me I think about a half hour to an hour for it to work. Uh, don't tell my office I did that. And but no, I was working on the side. I just opened it. I was like, "Oh, cool!" I clicked this. Like, didn't work. So like, I'm just gonna see if it works at one point. But it was chaos. It was absolute chaos. And the worst thing is my two of my very close friends were like, "Oh, we got tickets for the opening event." I was like, "Oh, cool. How many did you get?" "Oh, it's just the two of us." I'm like, "Thank you." If I lucked out, that would have been in German, and so I lucked out.
Yeah, and I saw lines piling up when I exited the 601 6 a.m. screening. There were a lot of
Yeah.
lines, even though the mall wasn't open by then. Because even if it's 6 a.m., the next screening is like 9 a.m. Because it's a 3 hour movie. It's continuous, and the thing
Mm.
is, I remember Charles here in the Philippines. Several. We have one weekend that almost all of the cinemas here in Manila has a 24-hour screening of the movie.
Oh yeah.
Hell.
Yeah.
That was fucking crazy. To see theaters or rather cinemas be open for fucking 24 hours just to accommodate the insane demand for Endgame.
The worst thing was, I have to confess, because it was a Wednesday and it played at midnight, I got home at 4 a.m. and I had to get up again at 7, so I had to work the next day.
Oh
Oh man, should have
man,
taken a leave, man.
Yeah, I should
man,
have.
the things we do for the fucking MCU.
True.
Yeah, we've done crazy things. Maybe that should be a topic in one of our podcast episodes. Crazy things we did for the
Yeah,
MCU.
that's
Yeah,
It's
actually
a,
that seems like a fun topic. But anyway, going back to
yeah,
the topic. I, I find the discrepancy between the end game opening day, the lines and everything compared to the Star Wars one. It's such a, at least in
Mhm.
my experience, it's such a fucking contrast of reactions, responses, and anticipation and the hype. You'd think Star Wars would be, obviously, Star Wars is sort of the king of pop culture nerdy stuff, but
hmm yeah,
with the rise of Skywalker, you'd think that the hype and lead up to such an important finale to a massive franchise would be as big as Endgame. But man, Endgame just fucking dwarfed the fucking Star Wars
so
finale by, like,
yeah,
it's incomparable. Like how people responded, how people reacted, and maybe I'm just very cynical about how Star Wars has slowly, it's not up to par. Even though I fucking love Last Jedi, it's
Mm.
not. The lead up to the end wasn't as smooth as Endgame. But when I saw the fans just dress up for the Star Wars premiere, the last Star Wars premiere, I was kind of like, why isn't that as cool as people carrying a shield to the Endgame premiere or carrying Mjolnir? For some reason,
yeah,
that's not as cool. It's just like, it's kind of. I mean, I don't want to shit on fans who love the Star Wars films and who cosplay stuff, but it was not as exciting seeing people dress up for Star Wars than seeing people dress up for Endgame.
You know what I think it is I think Star Wars to some degree kind of lost its identity because there's always been such long pauses. And now this new trilogy, I mean, let's be honest, that a bit the discussion around certain properties and especially in how negative turns it can take can dampen or sour the experience a bit.
Yeah, that's
And
true. Yeah.
I've been feeling that with Star Wars, like, because you can't, it doesn't feel like there's a lot of stuff I love where a lot of people love it, but for some reason there's this stigma that just is that loud minority that just kind of takes away the fun of it. And I think
hmm
Star Wars, especially with The Last Jedi and how that developed, it just kind of became this, okay, I'm curious what they're gonna do, but my heart's not into it anymore. And then you go into it differently. And the MCU kind of had this build up to this one moment where I mean, nowadays you still have people like you find people complaining, oh, it's nostalgia bait for the MCU. It's like, yeah, but the MCU's only been 10 years old. It's literally the end of that chapter. That's not nostalgia bait in the classic sense, but people will tend to try to they'll try to spin it in a way and try to take away, not purposely, but they kind of take away the energy that something can have.
yeah. But and the thing is, the thing about the difference is, Avengers Endgame, um, fans wants to rewatch it. Like
Mm,
Star Wars Rise of Skywalker, fans doesn't seem interested in rewatching it, and seeing it like this one. You talk about the tires props being brought into movie theaters. I when I watched Endgame, the man behind me is wearing Iron Man helmet for some reason, and and it's quickly becoming the norm. I've been to both premieres, and the thing about Star Wars premieres, like majority of them bring those lightsabers, like the effects prop. They always
Yeah.
bring that.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, for Marvel, it's more of like they don't usually bring props, but they uh they they manage to get on it on the clothes, the attires. They wear Marvel shirts. They wear Marvel apparels. They bring out Mjolnirs. They bring out toys with them, and
Mm,
looking back, generally, people love to do that because uh, they want to. they want to show off. They want to have that sense of connection with casual fans and hardcore fans alike when they saw it. Because the when I was in the Endgame premiere, there was a lot of fans that are taking pictures of those fans who brought their toys and brought their costumes and
Exactly.
It's funny how energetic it is, and then like even with Star Wars and everything, I think it's cool that people they love a franchise so much that they'll dress up for these events or these films just to kind of experience it in a different way. I mean, it's
Mhm.
not just these very nerdy events. I mean, Rocky Horror Picture Show has its own culture around it. Even
Yeah.
here in Austria, they have sing-alongs where people dress up like the characters from the show, where it's like an event where you just do that once in a blue moon.
It's so weird because during the Star Wars premiere, I saw someone bring a Keyblade. So I was kind of
Really.
like, oh, that's fucking weird. But anyway, um, talking about our favorite moments and sort of least
Yeah,
favorite
best
moments in
moments
the
and,
film.
and worst moments. Yeah.
1 year later, the thing. I mean, I don't hate the scene, but yeah, I kind of wish they had a funeral for Nat.
Yeah,
Oh yeah.
yeah.
Like at
Missed opportunity.
at least during the lake part where they're doing the Tony Stark send off. Maybe a Black Widow one would have been cool. I mean, fuck, that was such an important part of their lives. And like when she dies, Tony asked, "Does she have family?" Yeah, us. So it kind of
Yes.
seemed like the perfect thing. They could have done better with that. So that sort of still irks me looking back. Um, I also remember, like, as soon as I got out of the theater, I had so many mixed emotions because this thing made me cry. But structurally, as a film, it's kind of fucking. It's such a weird movie. It's like
Hmm.
it's hard to get into right now, but such a fucking weird movie. I was very conflicted with the whole greatest hits revisited kind of thing.
Time Heist. Yeah.
Um, it's as a film as a film nerd the whole thing about screenwriting and whatnot. I'm such a nerd about that. It kind of
Hmm.
left such a weird taste in my mouth. In retrospect, I kind of agree that Infinity War is the better movie, but as a better experience, as an overall sort of send off, I kind of get why Endgame hit those beats because it kind of needed to sort of it was tugging on heartstrings more than anything. In many ways it was the fan service movie, and part of me
Hmm.
wishes that we got a better movie as opposed to a fan service movie. But I mean, again, that experience, that whole ending is priceless. Everything they did was like a fucking such a fucking crescendo to it. So it makes it worth it. But a part of me wishes that they I kind of wish I kind of want to see what another version of Endgame would look like if they weren't so slavish to the fan service of it all.
I mean, I agree with the fact that, like, structurally speaking, if Endgame doesn't work on its own as a film without having at least seen Infinity War and something else, and I think
Yeah.
that does speak to what Endgame is in the end, because it's I kind of see it like that special issue, that big crossover event that most of the times has a really odd pacing, but it's all about those callbacks to the comics you read, to the characters. It's a Let's be honest, this is a film. If this was anything else, I don't think it would have worked. If it wasn't for what the MCU has accomplished over the years, for how many films, characters, everything that was involved, it would have fallen flat, because it just works on those characters. And I see, like, Infinity War works because it's focused on Thanos, and that was the smart thing about that film. It's his film in reality, and Endgame is kind of for every character. It's for the original Avengers. It's then about the Infinity Stones, and then it's about all the Avengers assembled. I always felt like it's three movies mixed into one,
Hmm.
and
Yeah,
it's a miracle that it works. Let's be honest, what the Russo brothers did is an absolute miracle.
Yeah. The pacing of Infinity War was fast paced, and it works in Infinity War, while the pacing of Endgame it has a slow build. Charles, did you mention your best moment from the film? I don't recall.
best moment. I think the general consensus of the best moment is the big fight in the end where
Yeah.
as a Captain America fan, I mean, you can't. It's hard not to say him picking up Mjolnir is sort of the culmination of his sort of his heart. I mean,
Mhm.
all the way back to the first fucking Avenger, where he jumps on that grenade. That's sort of the combination of it. That's him being able to lift Mjolnir, and him standing. Okay, another thing about it, probably my favorite moment is him standing against Thanos with a broken shield, no
Yeah.
hammer, ready to fucking die. Like he doesn't give a fuck. Like
Mhm.
I don't give a fuck if you guys are a fucking million. If you have a million goons, I'm gonna fucking stand. And that is sort of in many ways my favorite Cap moment. It's so emblematic of who he is. So yeah, that's probably my favorite moment.
Joe, how about you? Aside from the general consensus of Avengers Assemble moment,
Mhm.
what is your favorite part of the film?
For me, I think always the biggest challenge with a lot of films is that you have these really well done story arcs, character moments, and everything. But the one thing I think not every film really manages is to find a perfect way to end it.
Hmm.
And I was curious how they were going to do this because it's kind of like, okay, this is the film ends this era of stories, the first saga, the Infinity Saga, but it still has to be open ended. And I was a little nervous that they would kind of go a way that just like, oh, this villain is coming. Then we get a post credit sequence, but then that song starts playing. It's been a long, long time. And then they just
Yeah.
slowly zoom Captain dancing with Peggy. And I have to say, there's so many fantastic moments in this, but that moment just gets to me. I don't know what it is, but it's such a sincerely small but important moment to give this character. And just him finally getting that kiss. It felt like the perfect stamp to the end.
Yeah. And I actually listened to the song. It's been a long, long time, several times. I mean, while at work after the movie because
Mm,
it hit me emotionally. It gave me that emotional punch that it actually implying that it's been a long, long time for the MCU and we wrap it up this way beautifully. Wow, that's great, right? And
mm.
for me,
And
my best moment um, should aside from the of course Avengers Assemble moment that's gonna be number one on my list. Um, best moment of Avengers Endgame for me was the first part of the time heist when they were when Cap speech and then they clicked that uh, button to the quantum realm and then it showed New York and going back to that Avengers scene when they were just starting together like encircling up just gave you a sense of nostalgia like wow started from there and now we're here after that after all of this it's just amazing it's an amazing feeling because um, there have been rumors of course we've been following news ever since before Endgame premiered and there have been rumors that they will time travel they will go back to the past MCU movies but those are just rumors until you see the movie it actually happened it gave that sense of fulfillment for you they're actually doing it they're going back to past MCU movies and it's awesome for me. All right.
I mean, you got to think about it. There were some. I'm amazed how many cameos they could keep secret.
Howard Stark, and Edwin Jarvis from the Agent Carter series. That was
Oh yeah,
surprising.
the
That was
Jarvis
huge.
one is fucking. Yeah, I was surprised how many gasps I heard in the theater when Jarvis showed up.
Yeah, I'm one of
People
those.
watched it.
Yeah, I was like, oh, you guys fucking watch Marvel TV? What the fuck?
Maybe 60% of those watched the Agent Carter series, but 40% of those are like, oh, so that's the original Jarvis because he has the same
Oh
voice with
yeah,
Paul Bettany for some reason.
true.
Yeah.
Like they're seeing Jarvis in person for the first time, not as Vision. Okay, we're gonna debate now. We are in our last bit. Who has the best ending here as a encapsulation of every of his character arc? Is it Steve Rogers or Tony Stark? Joe, how about you start?
Oh man, they're both so good. Um, I have to go. Probably, I am a person who thinks the ironic endings are those actually very realistic, dramatic endings. I have to go with Tony Stark in this one. As much as I love the ending as my favorite moments, the impact of seeing Iron Man, Tony Stark, die saving the world after saying "I am Iron Man," um, was such a perfect ending for the MCU era that it just gives that ending an extra notch up to say that this was a perfect way to handle that character. I know a lot of people are pissed that he was killed off pretty much. I think there's a lot of like people right now trying to switch him with Steve, but if it comes to the build up to the development of the character, that was like the perfect way to end his arc within this franchise.
Charles, how about you? I'm interested to know your thoughts about this.
Yeah, I'm with Joe. I mean, for the longest time, when it came to someone dying in Endgame, my pick was always Steve because I mean that's his fucking story. He's the guy he's the guy who's willing to jump on a grenade. So let him jump on the grenade
Yeah.
so we can all fucking
Mm.
cry. I mean, he's the guy who sacrificed his life, and he's probably willing to sacrifice his life 1,000 more times. So for the longest part, I've sort of felt like Steve deserved that ending. So as an actual ending, I gotta give it to Tony because they gave that ending to Tony, and what better way to end your life than to fucking give it to the universe just so they could see another day. I mean that's it, right? So I'm gonna have to give it to Tony because it's so impactful. But then again, if it was Steve, if Steve died, I'm obviously gonna give it to Steve because in the larger scheme of things, Tony Stark has more to do with the future of the MCU than Steve Rogers because Tony is such an evergreen character that can show up every now and then, give everyone tips on tech and gadgets and whatnot because he's sort of the guy. So I always thought that Tony was the one who was going to live through the end. So not Steve. So that ending
Mm.
definitely surprised me. But yeah, I'm gonna give it to Tony just because that's how I want super. That's how I want superheroes' lives to end. As a sacrifice, is a very big, a big move towards the light.
Yeah. For me, I like both endings, but I will choose the one that has a huge impact to me emotionally, and I'm gonna choose Tony Stark's ending because it's perfect. I mean, him sacrificing it, and upon recalling the argument between Cap and Tony during the first Avengers, like it's it's switched, right? Like you make the
Mm.
sacrifice play, like right, those lines, and it's all blurry now. But seeing Tony like sacrificing himself for the sake of the universe is probably the most Tony thing to do at this point. And it had a huge emotional impact to me because I cried in the cinema while that was happening. But uh, his overall impact in the MCU in the past 10, 11 years has been huge, and that line was perfect. The "I am Iron Man," that his rebuttal to Thanos before snapping. That was
Mm.
impactful. That was amazing. That was amazing script writing right there.
I love the fact they
uh,
filmed that in the same room where he auditioned for the role too. That's
yeah,
cool. That's a really
that's
cool
so
touch.
poetic, right? That's so great. I mean, hands down. I have nothing to say much, but I love Tony's ending. And according to our Twitter fans, guys, we actually set the poll last week about this, literally a week ago. And according to the result, which hero has the better Avengers Endgame ending? Tony Stark, Steve Rogers. It's a close battle between the two characters. Steve
Really?
Rogers
Oh.
received
Mm.
44% of the votes, while Tony Stark received 56%. That's close. That's how close it is. It's been a
Wow.
debate there. And one user here has an interesting reply to our tweet. Sean B said that's honestly unanswerable. That's what he said.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there, 1 year of Avengers Endgame, and it was an amazing ride, guys. Final thoughts about Avengers Endgame, Charles?
Oh, it's surreal. I remember going out of the theater and thinking how surreal it was to finally see this movie. How surreal it was to know the ending. Like, holy shit! I can't believe I know this. How this fucking ends. It's so fucking crazy. And 1 year later, it's still a movie that I check out from time to time. I haven't actually seen the movie in its entirety since in the theater, but every now and then I watch like the ending, I watch the middle, I watch the start because a lot of this movie is very very watchable on its own, and you kind of
Mm.
don't need to spend 3 hours just sitting down and get the whole thing. You can watch the whole high sequence in 2012 or the whole thing with Thor in Asgard. It's there's everything for everyone at a moment's notice, and it's a very very watchable movie.
I still love rewatching it. I sometimes see myself just like Charles, just watching bits and pieces of it. Like I still think the entire Ronin sequence feels like a freaking John Wick film was stuck into the Avengers film for no reason. And there's
Yeah.
those moments like that that just really add or elevate it to some heights that you're just like, wow, this really happened. And I'm still amazed how far the MCU has come, how much has happened just from behind the scenes and how these films have turned out. It's kind of like a little piece of history right there. And I always love rewatching it, especially because I always love combining it with watching Infinity War. So there's a lot of just memories.
Yeah, and the thing is, Avengers Endgame is that movie that had a huge impact to me because it's really rewatchable. It's a fun movie to rewatch. Heck, I watched it 9 times in the cinema for Pete's sakes. So, I it's a re- even then I am not really tired of watching it, even though it's a 3 hour movie. That's because some 3 hour movies are a pain in the ass to watch. But this movie is different. This movie, I'm happy to be part. I'm happy for all of us to be part of history because it's the highest grossing box office movie worldwide, number
Mm.
one, and we're a part of that, and I'm happy to be part of history, literally, and seeing it as a true MCU fan, as a hardcore MCU fan everywhere, or even casual fan. It's fulfilling to see it all go down, like it, to all of that happen, to all of the ending, to all of the great scenes, to all of the best fight scenes, to all of the reveals. And you've invested so much in this franchise in the past 11 years. You've watched every movie, even the fans that are not that haven't watched from 2008, even the fans who just decided to watch after seeing the first Avengers film, or the second Avengers film, or even after seeing Avengers Infinity War. It's a testament that this franchise will go on, will live on. It will hector in the first 10 years, 11 years. And there are more plans ahead, given that there's phase four. And Marvel Studios have proved that they literally know what they're doing, and they can deliver the goods, and they can deliver quality films moving forward. And that has been Avengers Endgame, guys. So please do, if you want to rewatch it over the weekend just to relive that opening weekend, please do. And there's also a quarantine watch party for comicbook.com, a back-to-back, actually, back-to-back quarantine watch party where fans across the globe watch the movie at the same time. They tweet their thoughts about the scenes. And apparently there's a event happening this weekend, and writers Christopher McFeely and Stephen McFeely and Christopher, I forgot the name, but the screenwriters of Avengers.
Marcus and McFeely.
Yes, Marcus and McFeely will join in. Sorry, will join in on the weekend, April 26th and April 27th U.S. time. They will tweet. They will live tweet the movie Avengers Infinity War on the 26th, Avengers Endgame on the 27th. They will live tweet the movie there, and maybe there are still reveals that are yet to be revealed. Let's find out. And also, please do follow us on Twitter. That's twitter.com/MCUExchange. We recently tweeted the Cap uh, reaching out to the Mjolnir scene with the audience reactions, and it's still blowing up as of now. And there are fans really reacting to it. Please do so. You can like, retweet, or give us your thoughts there. Join the conversation. You're going to be left out. And also like us on Facebook at facebook.com/the MCU Exchange. Please do one last shout out to our listeners over at Spotify, YouTube, Anchor, Google Podcasts, and Breaker. Hello, hello, hello. And please do follow me on Twitter. That's twitter.com/Aaronchino. That's AERONCHINO. You can follow Joe on Twitter.
At that Abel, THATABERL.
And you can also follow Charles.
You can follow me on Twitter at CFSVillanueva.
Awesome. And that has been the MCUExchange Podcast, episode 15. Keep safe, guys, and goodbye.
Till next
Bye.
time.